Hey folks, Steve here with another Dark Sands video. We're going to try to ratchet through the next so many turns. We may be facing an endgame situation. We're going to see here as we head into turn 10 and the first turn of 1942. So I've drawn the replacement chits and I've made the replacements for the turn. You can see there just below the turn marker what the sides drew. This allowed the Axis to top off a German panzer unit. But they really couldn't make use of the Italian replacements, unfortunately, so more wasted opportunity there. The Allies made use of that tank replacement, as well as all three of their saved-up tank replacements to top off some injured units that were on the board, as well as to rebuild some units, some tank units that had been eliminated, to try to bring them back into the fold as well. And then we also had some infantry replacements that we used to kind of do the same thing, though it does mean that we have a few units sort of stuck in the back here. So here's the situation on the east map. We have a stack of units near Alexandria. We have some of the rebuilt units that are entering disrupted. We also had some of the reinforcements from last turn down here as well as some rebuilt units. So we're trying to bring some guys back on the board. We've got a guy coming down the desert road, and we also have some units that had been in Mersa Matra when they had come in. So a fair number of units actually on the east map. And again, if we look at the reinforcement schedule to come through the rest of the game, there's still a fair number of units that are going to come in, though we are also going to have a few withdrawals this turn, which could be very important. All this is kind of important as I'm going to shift the camera over a little bit so we can see the real action in the center. The Allies have kind of been put in a tough position. They still have some strength here. They've got some units here, 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 and here. The problem is the Axis has been surging forward and is going to be putting those units perilously out of supply here in the very near term. And I don't think there's much the Allies can do about that other than to attempt to pull back. But the real problem is they don't have a lot of room and enough movement speed to get out of there, I don't think. They've got a lot of problems. The Axis is sort of cutting off some desert roads here, so doing an extended move isn't going to be feasible, so they've really got them. And then even down over here, we have a number of German units and Italian units sort of screening. They've got nowhere to go but back. And over here in Tobruk, the Allies do have a number of strong units. Here, even a tank unit, which kind of made it so it was, you know, we didn't leave any Germans behind to help here, but they've got 14 defensive factors, just the units by themselves, and then there's also the defense of the fort. Now what's different here is starting on this turn, the Allies in Tobruk can no longer ignore retreats. So I think in terms of the combats that could come in Tobruk, what the Axis is really hoping to do is force a retreat result, which if they were able to do that, would basically cause these units to be eliminated because they've got nowhere to go to retreat, and the Allies actually have to consider pulling those units out and bringing them back to another port to protect Alexandria. Now the reason why all that's important is that in terms of victory conditions, there is an avenue to win an automatic victory. Let me see if I can find it here. If at the end of any victory check segment, a player controls both Al-Agala and Alexandria and can trace a line of supply to both hexes, then that player wins an automatic victory. So what the Axis would probably like to be doing here is, they built the bypass road, so Tobruk is kind of just gravy. They don't necessarily need to take it. They also have to be a little cautious of a breakout there, but I think they've got enough coverage. They don't need to worry too much about it. Because they've got Bardia, they've got Solemn, which are going to be worth victory points at the end. But if they manage to cut through here and take out, or at least cut these units out of supply and start racing east, They're going to create problems on the center map just in general for the Allies. And then as we look to the east, sorry for the glare a little bit there, they're going to be trying to surge this way, and the map gets really condensed here. So there's going to be sort of, there's not going to be a lot of operational options here. They're going to try to surge forward, and if they can get to the end of the map, then they'll win an automatic victory, basically. And that's going to be pretty tough to hit. But if they even get to El Alamein, they're going to get some turn victory points, which could be enough to win the game anyway. So I think right now the Axis definitely have a great advantage. What would have been the Historical Crusader, not terribly effective for one reason or the other. And now we'll see what goes down. For the activation chits for this turn, kind of tough to say who's got the advantage. So we've got our two logistics as usual. The British are going to get some reinforcements, and in really this turn, it's not a good pull, because what it's going to be is going to be a lot of withdrawals, actually. Now, a lot of the units that have been, or that would be withdrawn, are actually destroyed right now, so that kind of plays a little bit in the Allies' favor, but you always got to watch out. You don't want to suddenly lose units where you want to keep up a good defense or what have you. Otherwise, the Allies get a move marker, an only move, a combat only marker, and then 2 of the crappy or markers. So they could do, move and combat. Because they have dedicated move and dedicated combat markers, they'll probably use the crappy ones for, one or the other. It wouldn't make sense to do, 2 crappy moves, because then they won't get to use their regular move. So that's how I kind of see them taking their actions. Are going to be a crappy move and a good move, a crappy combat and a good combat, and we'll see what they can make out of it. I think they really need to focus on pulling back, though, at least at the beginning. The Axis has the Africa Corps, as usual, which is good for those 15th and 21st Panzer Division activations, the Italian HQ, which will help us get our frontline Italian units moving, and then the Axis actually, interestingly, gets some of these or full moves or full combats, and I suspect that we may want to do one of each as we get going. We'll have to see what the situation is, but I think that would be, a full move is going to get them probably nearly able to get on the east map and just cut the rest of these units out. So we'll see how that goes. Unfortunately, the initiative is the Allies, so the Axis aren't going to be able to really screw over the Allies. The Allies have a chance to maneuver some units. So I think it just behooves the Allies to do a move as the opening activation, because if they don't, and really any of these activation markers that are for the Axis come up, I mean, you can say goodbye to several of the Allied units that are going to be cut out. And, there have been enough losses that even the replacements just can't make up for it. So I think they're going to do a move. They're going to hope that the reinforcement chit probably comes later, because, again, they're not really getting anything with reinforcements this turn, and the rest of these things are going to go into the cup as usual. Now, there is an operational gamble that the Allies could make here, and I've been thinking about it for a few days, what makes sense to do. So let me get it on camera here so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So, while the Axis have surged forward very well, there is a danger here, and that danger comes with controlling this hex. If a unit were to move over here, and there is a space lacking Zocs to get up there, they could potentially, if these units contracted back, cut these units out of supply. And obviously, if the logistics chit comes up, then they're going to be out of supply, they're going to be weaker on combat, they're not going to be very effective. The only problem with that is, even if that's what occurs, there are enough forces here that they're probably going to smack their way into these units and get them either moved out of the way or eliminate them and restore a line of supply so that when the next logistics chit comes up. So it would have to be incredibly lucky to basically, get around those units, pull 2 logistic chits in a row, and then get rid of those units and then they've still somehow managed to keep a line here. It's so unlikely. I don't think that it's worth doing. It would put every single unit here at risk because we'd have to basically use all of them to do it, to securely do it. Because we wouldn't necessarily be fighting anyone. We might fight that. We might try to fight the weakened infantry, but we don't have a lot of options. We also don't have any specialty chits like the AUK or Comb Force or anything like that for the Allies. So everything they do is going to be separated. They're either going to be moving or combating. Combating? Yes, fighting in combat. They can't do a one and a follow-up, which puts every single step they take here at risk. The least risky option is to simply attempt to pull back and create some sort of new line along maybe try to anchor on this escarpment here instead of the ridges, so we can kind of create a new wall there. That might be the best option here, while we try to pull the rest of our reinforcements up to create better defensive lines until we get a whole mess of reinforcements several turns from now, and then also get the Allied assault CRT, which will play into things. Just to talk through that, so in the last so many turns of the game, the Allies will have the option to use the assault table, a table that I erroneously used for a few combats very early in the game. That CRT table provides much higher casualties, and the reason why the Allies might like that is that they just are going to come into the map with a huge amount of reinforcements, or a very large amount of reinforcements, relatively speaking. They've been able to replace better, and what their goal will be is to shatter and destroy Axis units to open up enough of a line that they can surge units down the desert road and try to take a couple of those victory point hexes before the end of the game and come out ahead in victory points. That's really, I think, the late Allied strategy, but by then it might be moot point. So we're going to probably do just the pullback. I'm going to stop a second recording. I'm going to work that out. I'm also going to consider pulling units out of Tobruk. I want to see what the current combat odds are. So when we come back, I'll cover that. Kind of a long intro, and I know the videos tend to be pretty long at like 2 hours a pop, usually an hour per turn. But it's important because we're reaching sort of a critical stage in the game, and I think the Axis could very well see their great victories to come here, unless things get a little more squirrely. So I'll be right back. Okay, I did some unit shuffling a little bit. I might have accidentally swapped a unit, but I think it's all right. Main thing I had to keep in mind is that with the withdrawals, Tobruk would actually lose some units as well. So I just sort of I pulled out a unit that was going to be withdrawn. I put into in a Tobruk via naval movement a unit that won't go away. The thing with Tobruk right now is that because of combat stacking, only 2 units can really defend, and having a third unit there would ordinarily be good because as you take losses, you can instead defend with a fresh unit. Problem is, that extra unit is probably best used elsewhere, so at best we're just going to keep 2 units in Tobruk as we can. The main thing is, if the Italians are going to attack in Tobruk, it's likely going to be 1-to-1 odds. 1-to-1 odds will basically kind of be a toss-up. A third of the time, the Italians will take a step loss. A third of the time, both sides will take a step loss, of which the Allies, in theory, could replace. And then a third of the time, it'll be a DR result, which will completely eliminate the stack. So we don't want to waste too many units up there, but we also want to make it difficult so that if the Italians get unlucky, they'll start draining their strength, and again, could allow for a breakout in the Axis rear. So we'll keep an eye on that. With the other moves, we were able to do some extended moves, and we were able to do that along that rail line, because now that the rail line is up so far, it's not complete, but I believe that doesn't matter. I sure hope I'm not wrong about that, but I believe it doesn't matter. I was able to move forward pretty much all of our non-disrupted units. So a unit that's disrupted, meaning the units we've rebuilt, can't use extended move, but the rest of them could. And so now I've got some units up here along the northern road. They were able to get there via extended moves on the road, which worked out okay. Or they didn't even have to use an extended move. It was just a regular move. They were able to get up there. And then the rest down here, because the rail line is south of that major ridge, I was able to get some units stuck out there. So it's not as bad as it was for the Allies. They decided not to do the risky thing because now they've got a decent defense here. They're going to be working off anchoring at that escarpment line and hopefully hold there and potentially, because if any Axis units want to try to come in here, there could be some supply issues for them from being cut off. Obviously, the Axis are probably going to want to swing down, this way and try to eat this direction and cutting units off. But they have to get there first. So I think that's an okay setup. That's the best that they can hold on to. I don't think the Allies have a decent chance of knocking out that Axis tank, at least not in time to really take Solemn, because it's up there in the pass hex, and there's enough units, Axis units nearby, that they could cover it. So, the Allies are on the back foot. I don't think they're totally out of it yet. So we'll pull the next chit, and if it's a logistics chit, I'm gonna laugh, but it shouldn't be. It's not. Okay, so it is an Allied half move or combat. Well, it'd be a crappy combat, and we aren't set up to do it. I think that half move, it would be our last move, but we nearly have exactly what we want in terms of movement. So we'll go ahead and make this our second move, just right out of the gate. We'll set up to hope that the Axis can't knock us down, and we'll move some units again back here a little bit. So we'll do 1, 2, 3. The two maps are kind of overlapping here, so there's a little bit of goofiness, but I've got it right here where I want them to be. Let's see, do 1, 2, 1, 2. It's hard to get the half out of here. And let's see. 1, 2, we'll do something like that. It's a little more staggered, and then 1, 2, down that way, just so that they're situated a little bit. And we'll even move like so. So now our HQs, there's an HQ down here. We have HQs sort of covering everywhere. We don't have HQs up here. Maybe we'll do that, just so it's hard to get. Well, that's actually not great. Maybe we'll do something like that for now, until we can get our other units up. Let's see if there's anything else. Let's see. Some of these other units, are starting to move up. They just don't have enough movement speed to get everywhere that we would want to be. We do have those disrupted units starting to move up. So, okay, so right now, that's the Allied defense line. The only thing down here is this rough. There could be Axis that comes down that way, so we may need to pull these units up more. That would have been maybe the ideal, but it's only a half move, so we don't have a huge amount of options. But I think there it's going to force them to come down, and that could mean we could then come down here and knock them out. So I think that's an okay defense. It's kind of a constrained defense, but the idea being we can move to where there's the pressure and hit, because we're out of moves now, but that's just the reality of the action chits that we have. We don't have a lot of options as the Allies here. So next chit drawn is Allied combat. So this is not the best time because they can't really attack anything. Their only option... Oh wait, it can't be the Allied combat because the Allies just had their 2 chits in a row. So we've got to pull a different chit. Allied combat goes back in. It's going to have to be an Axis chit. And we pull... Oh, we get logistics. So that's 1 logistics out of the way. Nothing's really out of supply at this point, so no danger there. We'll pull another chit, and it is another Allied. Maybe I should pull the Allies out when I have to do this. And, okay, so we got the 21st Italian HQ. What we're probably going to need to do now... is just move the units that are in range of the 21st Corps up. Yeah, because the rest of these units really can't. You can, move some units 1 hex, which we'll make use of that. I think what we'll have the Axis do is just activate. See, within range, so it'd be the Ariete, and I guess that's it. So I've got to watch out for that. I've got to really watch out for the range of the HQ because this unit's not in range, so I'll just move it up 1. This unit can move up. Well, I guess this would be the other division unit, so he can move. Oops, he's reduced. So with the HQ, oh, was he out of supply? Or is he up here? Yeah, see, I think that's part of our problem, is that we can only activate so many units. So we are only going to activate these 2 stacks here. This unit's out of range of the HQ, which is a damn shame. I think that's part of the problem with this 21st Corps. You just don't have a lot of units that you can make use of, which is a bummer. But I suppose that's just the situation we're dealing with. So we will move them down. So we'll do, well, let's move the HQ first, just so that we know where we can end up and still be in. It's really what I should do, is move the HQ first. So we'll move 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we want all these units to be, these 2 stacks to be within 2 hexes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's far enough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's dangerous. I would have maybe wanted to not have him. Just do that. Okay. Instead. Yeah, not the best. There's some danger here. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. I don't know. Alright. Those HQs, I tell you, it's tough. I think you'd rather want a move chit than a special activation chit because it's so localized and situation dependent. Alright, I pulled the 2nd logistics chit. So, gosh, I guess that's unfortunate. I guess had the Allies been bold, they might have put some units out of supply, I guess. So, maybe that's just another sign I should be more willing to take risks, but, oh well. Allied, half move or crappy combat. I don't think they want to do a combat up in Tobruk. They could attack with 10 combat factors. But the problem is they'd be on the 1-to-1 chart themselves, kind of wherever they would go. And I mean, even if they forced a retreat, that wouldn't do a whole lot for them. Because they're not going to have any, the Axis won't have any supply problems. If they did attrit them, that might not be a bad move, but then they have a very good chance of attritting themselves, and that's only going to make that attack into Tobruk even easier. So I don't think it makes sense to attack, especially with the crappy combat die roll modifiers. So we'll pull the next chit. And of course, we still got the Rommel chit that we could execute. I just don't see where it would be best used at this point. Alright, we pull the Allied Reinforcement chit, which will mean the next chit has to be an Axis chit. And we've got some withdrawals, so let's see, the blue... Well, I'll stop recording and I'll handle the reinforcements. We'll be back. Okay, not too much for the action here. We pulled out units. We really only lost, we had a unit pulled into Tobruk, and we had a Polish unit pulled out of that stack there on the coast. Does make it a little bit weaker there, but I think it could be worse, all things considered. We did get to add a unit, so we had enough stacking that we could put a unit on this HQ, so that was good. So now we're doubled up over here. I unfortunately overstacked here with the HQ, and I couldn't put a unit there, but I did put it in Mursa Matra, so that's not too far away. Okay, so we'll go back to pulling the chits, because we had two allied in a row again. The next chit basically is going to have to be a Axis chit, and we'll go ahead and pull that. And we got... nope, can't pick that one. Alright, we got the Axis move and or combat. So, what do we want to do here? I think we definitely would like to, knowing that we're going to have more Axis activations coming up, I think it makes sense to do a move first. And so we'll make the move. Now the goal of this move is to try to bring the rest of these units that are all sort of over here, not very useful, and bring them all into something resembling a line that can be used for combat, right? I think that's our goal, and this is where things are going to start to get interesting, because up until now, all the units, there's been some maneuvering, some fighting, some getting around and cutting off supply. This is probably going to be the first time all game where we get to a point where there are just units that are stacked up in a line of units from north to south, from the coast through the ridge line in the desert, where we're just kind of set up trying to find good attacks. I think we'll just about be at that point. Now this is a big move for the Axis. First time we've gotten a move like this in a while, so it's going to take me some time to work through that. So I'm going to take us off recording, and when we come back, the map should look very different. So see you in a second. Okay, so here we are after the Axis move, and what we've done... Some of the units were kind of further behind, so getting them on a trail and then getting them to where they could get up through over here. It was as far as they could go, but you can see we've got some of our HQs back here supporting other units nearby as they're coming up, bringing up the rear, and kind of importantly, covering the back end here so the Allies can't come too far back around. We do have a number of units up here, and that is just to defend the pass here. Now, I'm giving up a Panzer unit to do it up there, but because there is Allied armor, we want to make sure to put a good defense up, and I think our operational objective would be smash through the Allies here and then basically put these units at risk of supply and then have them pull back anyway. Sort of a reverse as to what the Allies did to the Italians at the very beginning of the game. I think that's our goal. So we have a nice number of units that are stacked up facing the Allied front. Now, what the Allies are, maybe, thinking ahead, maybe I should have been more careful about how I set these up. But there are a lot of infantry-only units down there, which means that any panzers that are involved in combat are going to get super powered with the Panzer Doctrine and smash them. Now, what's left in the cup right now are an Allied combat, an Africa Corps, and then another move or combat for the Axis. And I think, just based on what we want to do here, now might be a really good time to do a sort of a run for the Rommel chit. Because what would be nice is if we could knock out some units with an attack, and then when we draw the Africa Corps or combat chit, we can then follow it up and just sort of clear out these hexes here, so that the next turn then we can sort of move up and address those guys before the reinforcements come in too strongly. The real question is, do we use the Rommel chit to activate this hex to attack here and just simply blow that unit out of the water? Or do we attempt to do something more risky and slide our way through here and try to attack this stack with 9 defense factors with, I guess we would ultimately have 16, 19, 19 to 9 would be 2 to 1. Yeah, I don't think it'd be that valuable. I mean, it would knock out some of the Allied armor potentially, but it would only be 2 to 1 odds at most, and then we have all the other crap of Allied support and everything else, and I'm just not sure we want to deal with that. So I think it would make sense to take out this unit, and then we could advance after combat, or we could just simply attack with this stack. And that would be 11 to 4. We could turn that to 3 to 1 odds. But then the Allies would probably throw in their support as well and make that a much rougher combat. I think what we'll do is we will play the Rommel chit now, for what it's worth, and we'll activate our Panzer stack here for the combat against that infantry. And our goal just to basically wipe them out so that these units can later focus on this stack. So that combat, this is going to be a real disaster because it's going to be a +2 die roll modifier, 16 times 2 to 32 because we're going to get the Panzer Doctrine. 32 plus 3 is 35, 35 to 4. Gosh, that's, basically 6 plus odds, 6 to 1 plus odds. And we're going to add 2 to the die roll. I rolled a 1, but even that's a 3. So we're going to do, I guess an exchange isn't great because that could hurt the Axis a little bit. So we're going to, the Allies lose 2 steps, and now the Axis actually has to lose 2 steps. So we'll lose it from that infantry, and then we'll take a tank step loss. That actually wasn't good. That's not really what we wanted to have happen. But we will advance after combat just so that we've got Zox here. This unit's not going to be able to get through. They don't have the German infiltration move, so we'll do that. And gosh, I rolled a 1 on like the easiest combat die roll, which is sad. And there was no point in the Allies even trying to contest it because they were never going to change the columns. Anyway, all right, so we're going to pull the next chit. And it is the Axis mover combat. So I don't think movement's going to do anything extra for us here. I think the combat is probably what we want. And note that we get to do this because the Rommel chit doesn't have any limitation for consecutive attacks. And so now we've got several attacks that we can unleash here. Maybe even more importantly, we should address the Tobruk battle, but maybe we just settle down here for the moment. So if I look around There are HQs, there's a lot of infantry, and a whole lot of not much else. So I think we're going to have just the biggest combat possible to knock these units out. We can involve basically everything here. So 10, and note that in some of these cases the Hex is attacking here. We have the smallest unit organization in the game, I think it's the battalion, which can ignore combat stacking limitations. It's really important, actually. Yeah, the battalion, the two I's or two L's, whatever you want to look at, two dashes. It's really important for the Axis. They actually have a better organization structure than the Allies, which are mostly brigades. This allows some of those MG units and even the tank battalions to get involved in combats that kind of defy the combat stacking limitations to bring more firepower to bear. So that's sort of an important Axis thing in this game. So again, this was 10 and 13, 17, 21, 29, plus 16. Well, actually, it might make more sense for these units to attack here, because we're gonna have a lot going. So that's 6 base. So 16 plus 8, 24, 27, 31, 35. 35 to 6. So that's 5 to 1 odds. And I guess if the Allies try to pile everything in, they could add that's the 13th HQ. So they could add 1, 2, 3. They could add 4 to be 10. 35 to 10. Still 3 to 1 odds with a +2. Is it worth throwing all those in there? I mean, it might be better down here where there's going to be an attack. All right. Well, they'll not throw anything in. The Axis won't throw anything in. The Allies won't throw anything in. It'll be 5 to 1 odds with a +2, and its defender eliminated. So a non-replaceable unit is eliminated. This unit is also eliminated. And in terms of advancing after combat, we will have these guys advance. Now this combat down here, so they have 8 factors defending. 4, 10, 26 for the double panzers, and then so 32 to 8. That's 4 to 1 odds out of the gate with a +2 because of the panzer. 4 to 1 odds. 32 to 8. Well, the Allies can throw in the artillery. I guess the Axis technically would have to decide, are they adding anything in? And the thing is, I don't think that it's worth it. I don't think it's worth it to attack usually to add combat factors, because you typically can't make up for what the defender can put in to shift the odds. So the assets are almost always better to be used on the defense than the attack. We could add 2 more to make it 34, but I don't think 34 is going to make any difference. So the Allies throw in their artillery. That brings it up to 10, which makes it 3 to 1 odds. I don't know if they put in all of their Air Force. That would make it 12, 32 to 12. that actually would make enough of a difference. So let's say that they do. So they throw in their Air Force. So 4. Yeah, so 12. So 32 to 12, that's 2 to 1 odds. So 2 to 1 odds with a +2. We'll see what we get here. I rolled a 1, which is a 3, which is both sides lose a step. So we were able to hold it, and they're still going to be okay for supply. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, they're going to be okay for supply. So they're going to take a step loss, and we have to take a step loss. And I think we'll lose it on this armored car because it just doesn't do us much good. It's eliminated, whatever, at this point. It's not adding that much to the combat. Okay. And again, we didn't have to take the hit to the Panzer because of the resiliency doctrine. Now, I don't know if maybe that means... Oh, I couldn't take it from the armored car. I'm going to have to take it from a 2-step unit. Any other German 2-step unit. Okay, I'll take it from the MG. We sort of have some mixed units here. It's going to make it hard to make use of that resiliency. Okay, so that didn't go as well for the Axis. And now we'll go back to the Chit, which will have to be the Allied... Oh, I'm sorry. It will have to be Allied combat, but we got to do the Tobruk battle next. So, I'll put the Chit over there so we know it. It has to be, because now we've had 2 Axis Chits. So now we've got our big combat here, and maybe we were a little too lax in our using the Air Force. This battle might be more important. So let's take a look here. So we're going to have the tanks here who have a great defense factor. That's why I put them here. And this brigade. So each gets an extra defense factor being in the Tobruk fort. So it's actually, it's 10 for the units plus 2 for 2 units is 12. This is the only combat that is going to be relevant, so they're just going to automatically throw in their coastal naval support, right? So that's 14 combat factors, and then, oh, you know what, Tobruk is clear. So yeah, so 14 combat factors. It's pretty tough to get up to 14, but let's take a look at what the Axis have. So they can get this MG involved because it's a battalion. They've got 3 here and 4, so that's 7, 9. And then they can only get 2 units from this stack here. So that would be 16. So 16 to 14 is 1 to 1 odds, and there's no way to get any more than that. 16 to 14, 1 to 1 odds, no die roll modifier. So here's the real question, right? If we roll a 6, a 5 or a 6, it's going to be defender retreats. They can't retreat anywhere. At least I'm pretty certain they can't retreat anywhere. If I try to take a quick look at the retreats, yeah, basically, if we roll a 5 or a 6, Tobruk falls. Alright, so we're going to roll the die. We're going to see what happens. Alright, so we rolled a 2, and the attacker actually has to lose a step. So what we're going to do is we're going to lose it from this stack here, because we have enough units in play that it doesn't really matter. So Tobruk holds. Tobruk holds. And so far the Italians have only taken a loss that is basically non-consequential due to combat stacking. So They tried, 1 in 3 chance, and they got the worst result. So they'll have to try next turn. Okay, now we have allied combat. So again, I don't think it makes sense to attack here because we could have another attack go. I mean, I guess we could try to attack to a trit and then assume that we could get the replacements back, but I think the replacements are better off defending Egypt at this point rather than holding Tobruk. So we won't attack there, and yeah, we're not going to attack there either. I mean, if we really wanted to try, we'd have 10 combat factors. 10 combat factors to 9, 10. This would be 1-to-1 odds. 1-to-1 odds. Can't get any better than that. And, even if they retreated, it wouldn't do... Well, I don't know. That actually might be worth a try. If only because if we can move some units out of there... what a tough call. No, I think we hold. So the Allies don't really make use of their combat chit, and we get the Africa Corps as the final chit that comes out of the cup. Africa Corps, I think, let's see. So 15th and 21st Panzer Division and any one Italian division formation in range of the Africa Corps HQ to move and attack. So we do have a number of units that are sort of in that. Unfortunately, this HQ, the units advanced away from the HQ, we're not going to be able to activate them. Gosh, I didn't even think about that. Oh, man. That's really annoying. Wow, that's really unfortunate. Wow, that sucks. Okay, well, we still get the 15th and 21st Panzer Division and any one Italian division in range of the Africa HQ. Okay, so we're okay. Jeez, all right. So I think what that really means is just down here, do we want to try to knock out that unit again? I mean, I think we want to try. We do get the Arietta division to move and attack, so I think what they're going to have to try to do is we have to ignore that MG. It won't be able to get involved in combat. But I do think, let's see, these are all 90s, so we can't activate those guys. That can activate. Yeah, see, our problem is that we could come down here, but that opens that up, and I just don't like that. The only other thing we could do is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Try to come down and support, but I think this attack here is going to be enough. So we're going to attack this hex. The MG won't be involved, but the Arietta, whatever you want to call it, Italian division is in range and can participate. So that's 8 combat factors. The 21st unit here is 2. So that's 10 plus 16 is 26. 26 to 5 is 5-to-1 odds plus 2. And all of our support is pretty much used up at this point. Make sure I got that right. 8, 10, 26 to 6. I guess that's 4-to-1 odds. 4-to-1 odds. 4-to-1 odds +2. All right, we're gonna rock and roll here. 4-1 +2, and I rolled defender eliminated. And yeah, defender eliminated in this case. All right, so these units are removed. Now the HQ needs to relocate, and I can relocate it over here as the next closest stack of friendly units. So I'm pretty sure I could do that because we could trace the line of supply over to those guys. And I think we'll have these guys advance. Try to look at stacking here. Our stacking begins to become a bit of a problem because I couldn't advance with that unit, but I think that's sufficient. Okay, so that was the Africa Corps move. Nothing too crazy, just knocking out, again, some of those allied units. I think we accomplished what I wanted to accomplish, just that, it's not... We took a hit I didn't want to have to take, but there we go. And we didn't get anywhere with Tobruk, which is too bad. All right, anyway, so let's see. That puts us at the attrition segment, and everyone's good for attrition. Victory check, we're okay. Building segment, there's nothing to build now, and the railhead can't be advanced by the Axis, so nothing there. Disruption removal, which is good for the Allies, get some of their disruption away. And then asset availability, we'll take care of that. And we'll start looking at turn 11. So we'll be right back. Okay, we're going to work our way through turn 11 now. We're getting to the late stages of the game. The end of the turn track is in sight. I drew the replacements. They were pretty straightforward. The Allies were able to use some infantry replacements to get some stuff back on the board and replenished. We were able to top off a tank unit that we had rebuilt the last turn, and we saved a tank replacement, so they're doing pretty good. The Axis got a tank replacement. They actually probably would have wanted some infantry replacements, but they haven't gotten any. And we also got a free tank, or rather, Panzer Army, whatever, replacement. And so what the Axis did with that is they topped off the Panzer unit from last turn, and also rebuilt an armored car, which was placed on the Africa Corps HQ. And then the Italians were able to top off the unit that got injured in the Battle of Tobruk. And so, nothing too crazy there, I guess, to worry about. But we've got some interesting conundrums to face going into this next turn. All of that comes down to these chits for the activation. So, as usual, the two logistics. But the Allies have their replacement chit. In this turn, they actually are going to lose 2 units. That's sort of the important thing that they have to worry about there. Then, let's see. Then we also have... I'm just trying to look at the board real quick to make sure. So I'm looking... we've got a movement only, a combat only, and 2 crappies. All things considered, that's actually not bad. Those chits are actually fairly useful because you can move everything. There's no reason not to just, do whatever you can with what you got. It's not an issue. I think the only thing that is now coming to mind, I think I forgot last turn for the Panzer extra actions again, but I just, there's somewhat limited utility here. But at least for the Allies, those movement and attacks, I think they're actually better than the specialty chits. For the Axis, they have reinforcements, and the only reinforcement they're getting is a new HQ unit, the Panzer, was it Panzer Africa HQ? We get Rommel still, and then we get this new Panzer Army Africa activation shit. It is essentially looking like it replaced the Africa Corps activation chit, and ultimately this is actually a worse chit than the Panzer Corps, and I don't know why, but it just is worse. The Africa Corps allowed you to activate units of the 15th and 21st Panzer Division, and any one Italian division in range. The Panzer Army Africa chit allows non-out-of-supply Axis units that are in range of the HQ, so the HQ has to be nearby, to move and attack if they are on the west and center map sections only. Activated units on the center map may move onto the east map, but may not then attack. Yeah. So it's almost useless, honestly, because the units have to be in range, and we'll get to place it if we get our reinforcement chit first. If we don't, then it's a wash, so this is almost useless this turn. But the problem is, if you're within range, okay, great, but if it's only useful on the center map, that's going to make it much harder for us to do what we need to do on the east map if we're able to push the Allies back out. So I think there's some issues that we're going to have to deal with there. We get the 21st Corps as usual, and then we get a movement-only chit. Can only be used for movement, and we get a crappy combat or crappy move. And I think, honestly, we're going to have to use it for combat. The only problem then is, if we use it for combat, because it's going to be our only real combat activation, we're going to have to use it to... I would assume we would try to use it to attack Tobruk. The only problem is that if we attack Tobruk, then it's not a 1 1/3 chance. It's now, because of the -1... I mean, gosh, it's not 1 in 3 chance anymore. It's like 1 in 6 chance. So, we'd have to roll a 6 to take Tobruk. I mean, it's probably worth it anyway to roll, but it will make it harder unless we get really lucky with that die roll. So, overall, I think this is actually a bad turn for the Axis. They just don't have really good chits here. Right when they're on a roll to smash the Allies off the center map, they just didn't get a good draw. So... that's just really a bummer. The Allies continue to have initiative. I don't think we've had a single turn where the Axis have had initiative, though those are going to be coming up here once we've reached the historical Gazala time frame. And boy, I think the Axis are going to need it at that point, because we're going to start getting into that assault table stuff. So the Allies don't want to do reinforcements first, because that's going to leave units off the map. I think movement is probably their best call, so they're going to do a full move. So we'll put that on the turn track, and we'll do the movement, so we'll be back. Okay, nothing too crazy here with the movements. We got most of the units that we would have wanted. I guess I will make one modification to that. There we go. So we have basically almost all of our units off the east map, on the west, and in the center map, and we've got a good solid line. We couldn't quite get all the units right where we wanted them yet, but we've got plenty of Allied tanks getting situated here, and the Axis aren't going to have a lot of good ways to get set up the way they want for their own defense. So we'll see how it goes. We're going to draw from the cup now, and we pulled the Axis crappy move or combat. Well, I think we've got to try to do combat here. It's the only real combat that we're going to get that we can consistently launch, and we're going to do it on... I mean, there's no other attacks that are lined up except for good old Tobruk, and I'm pretty certain all of this is going to be pretty much the same. We're attacking with 16. They're going to have 12. We'll put this in for 14. Well, I guess they don't need to do that, because if it's 12, that maybe they'll need it for this down the road on the coast. Because what it's going to be, 16 to 12 is still 1-to-1 odds. And even if the Allies piled everything else they had into it, it's still going to be 1-to-1 odds. And there's nothing that the Axis can really do here. Even if they were to put in, gosh, everything, it still wouldn't be 2-to-1 odds. So it's going to be 1-to-1 odds no matter what. And so we're not going to waste any of our assets, either side, to do this. 1-to-1 odds, we need to roll a 6 to take Tobruk. Otherwise, every other result is going to cause some losses to either side. So here we go. We rolled a 4, minus 1 is a 3. So 1-to-1 is both sides lose a step. So we're going to use that same step that we lost last time. And the Allies actually do have to take this to the tanks. But I'm sure they'll be able to replenish that. They'll definitely be able to replenish that next turn. And this is probably going to be the only Tobruk fight we're going to have this turn. Okay, going back to the cup. We're going to pull. I realized I accidentally put the Rommel chit in there. Not going to do that. Well, actually, now that we're thinking about it, would Rommel help here? Or any German units in any one hex? No, that's not going to help in Tobruk, so no use. Alright, pulling the chit. We get Allied reinforcement, and all we're going to be doing with that is pulling off a couple of units from the board. So the 7th Brigade of the 4th Indian Division, if I'm reading that right. So 7/4 was in the eliminated pile, and so was the 5th Brigade. So the units that came off the board were already in the eliminated box, so nothing too crazy happens there. Go back and draw. And we get the Axis reinforcements, which I guess we could put in a decent position here, because again, with the placement rules for HQs, this worked out in the Axis' favor, I guess. Yeah, okay, so we're going to take our shit. I need to round its corners, so I'm going to do that off camera here for one spell. I'm just going to do it while the recording's going. So it just takes a second. Okay, round its corners. What we're going to do is we're going to put this unit, or this HQ rather, right in the thick of things. We're going to place it right here. And it's not, well actually I guess it'd be better here. So here we can activate what's got to be on a unit. Dang it. That will still get everybody. There. So we've placed the new HQ, the Panzer Army Africa chit, and it's going to be in range for everyone to go and take action. Now, maybe the only challenge to this, again, it's not as good as the Panzer Corps HQ, because then you could just activate the Panzer divisions willy-nilly. Here we've got to be a little more practiced in how we maneuver units, so that'll be the best we can do. Alright, so we're going to go back, we're going to pull, and we've got logistics. Everyone is safely set up for logistics, no big deal there. We will pull this next chit, and it is the 21st Italian Corps. I think here we just want to move up, probably, so we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll do we would have activated, I guess, this unit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and the Arietta division. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And, oh gosh, yeah, might as well just throw these guys like so right there. They're in a little bit of a dangerous position, but they're almost certainly going to be safe for the moment. We just want to move them up so that they're ready for future combats. Now, the only trick here is the Allies could... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... Yeah. They can't really... 4, 5... I guess they could get some of these guys out of supply, but depends on what they pull. Alright, we get the Allied combat chit. Well, they don't have a lot of options here. They could attempt to attack these Italians, but their defense is 10. They'd attack with 6, and there's not much they can do about that. So we'll call that a wash. They don't do any combats with it. Next shit is the Allied half move or combat. Well, we know combat's not terribly effective. We could do a half move, but unfortunately, it's not going to do us any good to get these Italian out of supply. They're not going to have enough movement to do it. So really it's about what do we want to move that could be more useful along the way here. So I think there are some minor moves we could make, and we want to get these tanks probably situated a little bit better than where they're at now. So maybe what we'll do is I think what we want to try to be doing is getting as many tanks out here as possible so that the Axis don't get their panzer superiority. So as long as we get, decent stacks and tanks with those stacks, it's going to make the panzers less capable of busting through that line. And at this point, I mean, they've got a pretty good anchor, again, on the coast, up here, and then just through, defending this road junction, which is kind of an important one, where the escarpment becomes a ridge with the trail there, and then everything else is sort of guarded. We've got mostly Zocs that are pretty well defended. We may want to swing a unit or two down here just to finish off blocking off the map. The only problem with this strategy right now is that unless the Allies can go on the offensive, they're just not going to be able to do a whole lot. They're going to lose because they're not going to have any victory points compared to the Axis. Right now, if this stayed the same for the next so many turns, the game, I believe, would go to the Axis because they would get 1 victory point for, let's see, 1 VP is awarded to controlling player for each of Tobruk, Bardia, and Solemn. Well, the Axis have Bardia and Solemn, so that's 2. And as long as the Allies have Tobruk, that's 1. So the Axis would win right now. So the Allies can't... This is a good defensive line, but they can't rely on this defensive line. They need to do more than that. But right now, I don't think they've got... Well, the potential is there. They're going to have to wait for some of these better chits to come in the next couple of turns to really turn it around. So it is conceivable, but I think it's going to be difficult for them to do it. And I'm just doing a quick sanity check on some of the rules as I'm going through here. Yeah. I was looking to make sure that the Allies can't just navally invade Bardia or Solemn in amphibious invasion, but based on the way I'm reading this, I'm pretty certain. Yeah, it's from friendly port to friendly port, so there's no amphibious invasions in this game. So right now, the Bardia and Solemn being ungarrisoned doesn't really matter. They can be ungarrisoned at this point, and the Axis still control it, so no big deal there. Okay. The moves are complete. I think they were good moves. We're kind of set up well. We'll draw the next chit, and it is the Axis move chit, which is coming in handy because they need to move some units into position. So I'm going to take us off camera. I'm going to do the movements, and we'll be back. Ooh-wee, we're in the thick of it now, aren't we? All right, so I moved a few units around. I swapped out the Panzer here for an armored car. I think that should be sufficient. I should also point out they put in a fortified box here. I realize I probably should have fortified boxes due to the previous move in almost every single hex along this line. So I'm going to make some corrections because I feel like I should have been using these things a lot more often than I have been. Mostly because there's been so much movement, but here's where the Allies definitely would have put in fortified boxes early on in their defense scheme here. And they can pretty much do it just about, I guess they wouldn't have been able to do it there. So most of the line, they have fortified boxes. The Axis have surged forward, and, you know, again, I put an armored car where that tank used to be. That should be enough strength to defend the pass. If that were to fail, the Axis still have, at least for the moment, plenty of supply being traced through the desert road. So that's not really an issue for the moment, as long as that can hold. I guess that's really the scary question, but here you can only attack from one hex. So at most, the Allies could maybe get 13 factors, something like that going, and that's just not enough for 2-to-1 odds, and they would just likely not be able to do much there. But what really matters is down here where things are thickest, and that's where the real fighting are going to take place. I moved all the way up. I've got all the HQs surged forward. So now it is just a question of the activations that we would want to take. Now there's not a whole lot left in the cup, but we're going to see what comes out. We still have Rommel, and I don't think... I think we'll wait until after the other combats are complete to see if we want Rommel to do anything else. But at least for the moment, I don't see... Well, I guess... Okay, so what we would maybe do is have the 21st Panzer do something. Or the 15th Panzer do something. These are awfully congested over here, right where my plexi surges. So it's 8. Yeah, I don't think that's going to do it. That's not going to do what we want to do. Okay. Well, we'll hold on the Rommel chit for now, and we'll just draw whatever comes next. And it is the Allied half movement or combat. Well, this is really the last activation for the Allies, because everything else that's left in the chit, or the cup, are logistics, the Panzer Army, Africa chit, and Rommel. So they've got to decide, is there anything they want to do this turn? And I think, I mean, they could do an attack. Might not be the worst time to do it, because they've got a bunch of units up in their grill. The only problem is they just don't have a lot of good places to make use of it. They could try to force an attack here, and that might be their best option, honestly. So, let's see what we've got. We would have 6, 9, 15, 18, 22, 25, 32, 32 attacking, 9, 15. So that would be 2-to-1 odds. And I don't think they would have any modifiers besides a -1. And by the way, the last activation when the Axis moved, we could have had attacks, but I don't want to attack unless I can bring every factor into that combat. So that's why we didn't make use of the double move, just because there's just too many allied tanks now that we can really get away with attacking with only Panzer units. We need every combat factor we can get now. So 2-to-1 odds, but could force a retreat. I think that's worth it. I mean, we're not going to do great, but if we can force a retreat that's going to screw up, well, but then they're, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, it would put them outside the range. Oh, no, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't make a difference. So we could force a retreat, but then with the Panzer Army Africa shit, those units could come right back and attack. So at worst, we would just hurt ourselves a little bit and maybe hurt them a little bit. That's not good enough to attack, I don't think. Alternatively, we could try down here. They've got 11, 13, so 10, 17, 19, 22, 28, 13. That's 2-to-1 odds as well. But at least there, well, and it's the same problem. 1, 2, 3, 4. They could come right back up. No, I guess they don't attack. They don't attack. We need to wait for the Allies really need to wait for that assault doctrine to kick in. That's the only way. And we need to wait until turn 14 for it. Ugh. Alright, so they don't do an attack. The -1 is really the problem. They won't roll well. Okay, so we'll draw the next chit. We get the Panzer Army Africa. Now, fortunately, we have set up the HQ and the units to be valuable. Now, the one thing is worth pointing out is that the Panzer Army Africa has a range of 3 hexes instead of 2, so we actually have an even broader reach than I originally thought. Allows non-out-of-supply Axis units in range of Panzer Army Africa HQ to move and attack if they are on the west and center maps only. And that even means the Italians, and basically everything in that part of the range, or everything below the ridge here, is basically in supply, or rather in command range for this. So I guess this is an interesting opportunity to really push forward and do some damage here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Well, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do some moves. Just make sure the entire line is as filled up as it can possibly be. And I think what we want to try to do, I think we want to try to unhinge these two hexes if we can. Alternatively, try and unhinge this hex. That'd be 13 combat factors. $14 combat factors, actually, with the wadi. See, taking this hex is okay. Yeah, I guess we would maybe target these two hexes, the outermost ones, because that can lead to a scrunching for encirclement and imperil this path here that the allies would want. So I'm going to take a second, I'm going to work out what the attacks will be, and we'll be back. Okay, so I put some attack markers just to show what we're going to do. We are going to have these guys attack here, we are going to have these guys attack here, and we'll probably be throwing plenty of assets in. This is the end of the turn, so at this point both sides have kind of held back in their assets, and there's no reason not to throw everything into it. So I'll do this bottom one first, I guess. It's the less critical one. So I'll move these attack markers out of the way so we can see what's going on. So we have 12, 14 from this hex. Well, they're infantry and no AT, so we actually are going to get the Panzer bonus. So 16, 22, 22, 26, 28, 34, so what, 39? 39 to 8. So we'd probably, well, we throw in the Italian artillery, which is in range, and the flight, the Air Force there. 22, 28, 30, 34, 39, 41 to 8 is 5 to 1 odds. But if the Allies throw in their 13th artillery, that adds 2, that makes it 10. So it would be 4 to 1 odds. And I guess if we threw in that would make it 11 and make it 3 to 1 odds at that point. So 41 to 11, that's only 3 to 1. So I think we'll do that. So it's 3 to 1. Unfortunately, the Axis is still going to get a +2. So it's 3 to 1 +2. That's still pretty good. I rolled a 2 + 2 is 4. Is a defender retreats and takes a step loss. So take a step loss, and we have to retreat 4 hexes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, I guess, is the right way to do it. And then we'll have these units advance after combat. And it is pretty congested here, So try to be wary of that. So we pushed some guys back, and now we'll have this combat up here. Now there would... There's enough basically anti-tank factors there that we're not going to get to double the tanks, though the Axis does have superiority of anti-tank factors, I believe. So if I look at my handy-dandy cheat sheet, each allied tank step, so there's 2 there, that's 2. Fortified box makes it 3, and then we have the Wadi makes it 4, I believe. 4 anti-tank, but the Axis has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 actual tank factors, so they have 2 more, and they get a +1 DRM for every step more, so they still get the +2, but they're not going to get the Panzer Shock for doubling combat factors or forcing an additional step loss. Technically, the Allies would have lost another step. So, yeah, Panzer Doctrine was in effect. So that stack that retreated actually took an extra step loss. But up here, they're not going to have that, and the defensive factors here are going to be 9. They get 2 for the fortified boxes, 11, and then they get another one for the Wadi. Not all the attackers are across a Wadi, but I think as long as they are attacking across a Wadi in some way, that gives them a defense factor. So we're looking at 12. We're attacking with 16, 19. Sorry, I'm just making a note here. So 19 here, 20, 22, 30. So 30 to 12. Now here's where things get kind of interesting. So the Axis are throwing everything into this, right? And that includes their anti-tank aids and the Axis Air Force. So that actually adds 5 more. And there's no reason not to do this. So that brings it to 35, which, gosh, we would have liked to have gotten even another factor somehow, but we weren't able to get it. And the Allies can throw in the 30th Artillery, and they've got their own Air Force to throw in. So that brings their total up to 14, I believe. Yeah. So, yeah. So the grand total is 35 or 14. That is only 2-to-1 odds, but they get the +2, which is important here. 2-to-1 odds +2. If we roll a 6, it's actually probably worse because of the exchange, but we'll see. So 2-to-1 odds +2. I rolled a 2, so 2 + 2 is 4. Defender retreats. So we didn't hurt the Allies too much, but we are forcing them to retreat. So they lose their fortified box, not a big deal, and then they need to retreat 4 hexes. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we will have the Axis advance after combat. And then we'll just simply take these assets off. Well, we'll leave them on here for a second because technically speaking, we still have the Rommel chit to go. And I think we'll play the Rommel chit. The last chit in the cup is logistics. So if we're able to do something interesting, we might be able to cause some havoc, but oh boy. Yeah, we might be able to do something. So the real question is, how are we going to do it? We could attempt to cut those units off. Now that we've got that that trail blocked, we could get out of here. So we can get either a German divisional formation or any German units in any one hex to move and attack or attack and move. Well, if what we did was take... Wow, this is really interesting. Gosh. What would it take here? I'm going to take us off camera here and figure out... Because what we could end up doing is sending one of these high movement units up through here and try to cut these guys out of supply. I just don't know if we have enough movement to do it or not. We might. Gosh, if we do, that's going to be a big deal. So I really need to look at what are the options and see what we can do. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I used the Rommel chit. I activated this stack. I left this unit be. I moved this MG that has a high movement speed with its anti-tank asset attached for whatever reason, and I moved them across here to here, and I moved this armored car all the way up to here. Now, what that does is it puts these guys out of supply. They can't trace an overland path, absence of enemy Zocs, to a trail or what have you. Right, they can't trace through here because there's zones of control here across this wadi. So they can't get to this trail. They can't get past the Zocs here, and they could get, to here, but the Zoc's present, and either way there's a unit here. So all of these units can't trace supply. They've been locked in the ridge line in the sea, and they don't have a port to get additional supply from. So when we pull logistics, these guys all go out of supply. This one too, I'm not going to bother putting a chit there. And that's it for the turn. So now we do attrition segment. This was well played by the Axis. The fact that it's like, oh, logistics is left, we'll play Rommel, and let's just grab stuff. Let's see what we can grab. I don't think there's any way for us to have gotten any further to cut even more units out of supply. We wouldn't have had enough units to do it, really, is the reality. Because the rail line was built, and so there's just too much stuff to cover here. But that works, and what it does is it puts these units are all eliminated. They all surrender. Huge. Huge. And now the Allies are going to be in trouble. I think the Allies are going to be in some deep trouble here because they could easily snake out around and cause some problems. Now I'm looking to see, what really matters is going to be initiative next turn. If one player owned the last two consecutive action chits in the previous turn, yeah, see, I'm wondering. I guess technically because we had the Panzer Army Africa chit played and then Rommel and then logistics, this is going to give the Allies initiative, which is kind of a bummer. But I'll take it because, you know, that was too good. We eliminated so many units. I mean, it's incredibly good luck for the Axis right there. Okay, victory check, nothing there. No building's going to occur. We remove disruption, that's straightforward. Asset availability we'll take care of, and we're going to start looking then at turn 12, 1942, and I think this is where things are going to start getting real interesting, because again, the Allies are in a losing position right now, and they just lost a bunch of units, more than they can replace, so it's a good thing they're getting reinforcements, but there's just too much going down here. So anyway, thanks for watching. Probably another long video. I try to move more quickly, but there's just a lot of important events going on here in the turn, and didn't want to lose track of that. So we will come back and we'll be covering turns 12 and 13 in the next video. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you later.